Here we are on the front of our Grand Design Transcend 26BHX. We are going to do a technical walkthrough on this unit, going through some of the components on it, letting you know how it works, just like a technician would do on the date of delivery. Now, your unit may vary in some of the brand names of these components, or if you want a deeper dive on them, you can find that information on our Great American RV YouTube channel under HAP's Helpful Hacks playlist. We're going to start in the front up here. We have our 7-way plug that's going to transfer all of your lights, turn signals, so on, as well as your battery charge line, which will pull off the alternator of your towing vehicle to charge your battery while you're traveling down the road. You're also going to have your brake controller wire that is fed off of that towing vehicle that transfers through here to activate your brakes whenever you're stopping with your vehicle. You're also going to have your breakaway line right here. That is going to be that silver line with a loop on it. You need to put that on your receiver hitch where you hook your tow hooks up. So those the safety chains that you put on there, those tow hooks, that's where you need to hook this on there. That is so if anything ever happens to the hitch, chains, whatever, and the trailer actually separates from the towing vehicle, this cable pulls out of that breakaway box and it will activate the brakes on our trailer. Now, that's only going to happen if we have a good solid 12-volt battery on here that's charged up so it has power to activate those brakes. If not, it's not going to work properly. So you need to make sure you have a good battery. You also need to make sure that that pin in the breakaway box is all the way inserted into that box. Otherwise, your brakes will be active all the time. You don't want that. Above that, we have our 12-volt jack right here. Up, down, has a light on it. 12-volt powered. You can follow that red line over to your battery. You're going to have an inline fuse on there. In the event this jack isn't working, you can check the voltage on your battery, or you can check that inline fuse and try to change that out or fix your dead battery. If you can't figure it out, pull that black cap off the top, get your crank handle out the compartment, and you can manually crank that jack up or down. Behind that, we have our dual propane tanks under here with our dual propane regulator. Now, that will work when you have both tanks on. You choose which tank you want to be your primary by turning that selector switch to that tank. It will pull off of that tank until it runs empty, at which time the indicator will read red, and it will automatically start pulling off of that secondary tank. Now, if you go over to that tank, it reads red, you can swap over to that secondary tank, make it your primary now, and that gauge should change depending on how much you have in the tank, and you can have your other tank changed out or refilled. Behind that, we have our battery rack where we'll store our batteries. Moving down to the driver's side, we have our access to our pass-through compartment right here, as well as our control center. Let's take a closer look at that. In our control center, on this wall panel right here, you'll see it says inverter prep. This is where our wiring is going to be prepped for our inverter system. If we want to go ahead and have that hooked up, we can purchase that inverter, and the wiring will go from our battery system to the inside 110 outlets. That is if you want to change your 12-volt battery power to 110 power. In the event you don't have plug-in, you can utilize that system if you don't have that 110 plug-in. Beyond that, we have our 110 outlet right here, GFCI protected. We'll talk a little bit more about that later on. Here we have our coax plate where we'll hook up our outdoor satellite or cable if the campground has it. Here we have our solar prep disconnect. Now, once again, just like the inverter prep, you are solar prep. And if we go ahead and add those panels and we get that solar controller, we can convert that solar power to our battery charge power. If you don't have all that set up, this is pretty much nothing to you. Don't worry about it. It is just to disconnect that solar power and eliminate it from the system if you have it. If you do have it and you get that set up, you want to leave this on whenever you have good sun or anything like that, especially when you store your unit, and it will go ahead and charge your battery from that solar. Now, this is your battery disconnect. All units are going to have this because you'll have a battery, right? Anytime you store your unit unplugged, you want to go ahead and turn this battery disconnect off, remove that key, and that will disconnect your battery from the system and conserve the charge on it whenever you want to go back and pick up that unit. Now, if you are plugged in, you store your unit plugged in, you're using the camper, that battery disconnect needs to be in the on position. That key won't be able to come out of it. That means that your battery is engaged. It will charge when you're plugged in, and you'll be able to utilize your system. Below that, we have our city water connection right here. You'll hook your water hose up to that. You'll have your valve right here in the city water position, and that'll provide water to all your fixtures in your unit. You will have an onboard storage on your unit. If you want to fill it from the pressurized city water connection, you would turn this valve right here and it'll begin to fill your tank. Now, once again, if you want city water, you'll have to turn it to city water. There is another way to fill that fresh tank. We'll talk more about that onboard storage when we get to the gravity fill later on. Below our pass-through compartment, we do have our stabilizer jack. Now, this is not a leveling system. It's just a stabilizer jack. You're going to have these on all four corners. Now, in order to level your unit, if your pad is unlevel from left to right, you need to go ahead and get those stacker blocks, set them up and put them under your tires as you're backing up to go ahead and get that straightened out from left to right, and then use your tongue jack to level it from front to back. From there, then we go ahead and put these stab jacks down, manually crank them down. The idea is we want to keep them in a nice diamond shaped form. If we don't do that, they're not going to be used to their best ability. If we have them straight up and down, we put too much weight on them, anything like that, they will bend and break at the welds or mess up the jack if we put too much pressure on them. So we can also get some more stacker blocks and have them under there so we can try to keep that ideal diamond shaped form as best we can. That will help reduce the amount of movement that you feel in the unit. When we crank them down, we put a little bit of weight and tension on that jack, and that's about it. We don't want to go lifting the camper or try to level it with it. They do have a weight rating, and it's much less than the weight of the camper. So make sure we're using these properly. Manufacturers do not participate in replacing them out if they're damaged due to misuse. Just past our pass-through compartment, you'll see we have a gray tank connection right here. We hook up our water hose, our 4-inch sewer hose, and we run that over to our port. Now, more towards the rear, we're going to have our black tank connection. This is just for the secondary gray tank. So you will have two hoses on this system. We'll talk a little bit more about the gray tank system when we get back over there. Over here, you're also going to have a red and blue line sticking out of the bottom. Those are your low point drains you'll use to prep for winterization. You can find more information about that in your owner's manual or in our HAPS Helpful Hack section. The side of our unit, we do have that vent right there on the side. That is for the hood range vent over our stovetop. If we want to be able to vent out, it does have two tabs on it. We would have to open up in order for it to ventilate out. You can choose to close them up when you store it so no insects or rodents can build any nests. All right, so behind me we have our slide out. That is a rack and pinion slide. All that stuff goes through the frame. Your motor is in the underbelly. It's 12 volt controlled. There is an override for this on the other side. You'll see a hole in your J-route that you can go ahead and put that crank handle in and manually run that slide in the event that something goes wrong. Now down here we have our other black tank, gray tank valves. Just like the one in the front, just a separate connection. So like I said, you'll need two hoses, go into Y pipe, then into your sewer connection in order to dump. Now you're either gonna have a sewer connection at the campground where you're at or at the dump station if you don't have one there. So we're gonna go through that dump process. If you do have the location at the campsite, then you can go ahead and leave your gray water valves open all the time. So one in the front and the one right here, signified by that gray handle. Now we can do that because gray is just our sink water and our shower water. We're not gonna have any deposits that dry up except maybe from the kitchen sink, but it won't be that much. That stuff should flow out. Now for that system, it can just constantly flow. That way you don't have to come out and open that tank every time you take a shower or anything like that if it fills up. Our black tank, however, is holding our sewage from our toilet. We don't want that stuff to dry up in our system. We want to make sure we keep water in that system. So you leave that black tank closed all the time until you are ready to dump. Now when we are ready to dump, we'll have our hose hooked up to that dump station. We'll pull that black valve and let everything drain out of there. When we're ready, we go ahead and hook a hose up to our black tank flush up here, and that will supply water to a little jet on the other side of that tank and help flush that system out. Now it'll do a pretty good job at cleaning it. Whenever you are done satisfied, you can disconnect that hose right there, shut your black tank valve, then go to your toilet on the inside, hold your pedal down, and you want to add several gallons of fresh clean water into that system and keep it there. At that point we add our chemicals. The chemicals will help degrade any little bits that might still be in there, as well as any toilet paper that might still be stuck to the walls or whatever. When you travel down the road, all that stuff will bounce around and get settled down to the bottom. So I want to add those chemicals so it can help it degrade and help it smell good, of course. On the back corner, of course, we have our twist lock for our power supply. We'll take that power cord, insert it in there, turn it to the right. You do have a retainer ring on there. You want to go ahead and tighten that up. That way the kids playing around don't trip on it, pull it out, and lose power to your camper. We hook this up first, and then we go over to our power pole and plug it in there. It reduces arcing here at our plug, and then we also want to make sure that before we plug everything in that our AC systems are off, and when we unplug it as well, so we don't cause any unwanted surges to our appliances up there. Once again, we're going to have that manual stabilizer jack here in the rear as well. On the rear of our unit, of course, we have our spare tire mounted to our bumper. On each end, you'll see a plastic cap on there. You can remove those and store your sewer hose in there if you wish. Up at the top, we do have our prep for our Furrion backup camera system. Power is already ran. Whenever you turn on your running lights on your towing vehicle, power will be supplied to that backup camera so you can see behind you when you're backing up or while you're traveling down the road. Over here we also have our Suburban water heater system. That is a tanked water heater. We'll go over the operation of that when we get to the inside. You're also going to have a little quick connect spray port right here on the side. You can get that blue coiled hose, stick it in there, and have a cleanup site out here on the side. Up top you're also going to notice that bracket right there. That is for our Lippard on-the-go ladder system. That is if you want to purchase that telescopic ladder to be able to gain access to your roof. You can certainly do that. You hook it into that bracket and gain access to the roof. And that is important because we need to check our sealants on the roof every 60 to 90 days. That includes our sealants on our trim, around our lights, around our windows, around our doors, all that stuff every 60 to 90 days. We need to check for cracking, peeling, or deterioration on any of that sealant, clean it and reseal it to make sure that we don't have any water entry into our unit. Now, manufacturers don't participate in any water leaks due to lack of maintenance after the first 90 days of purchase. So it's very important that you stay on top of this kind of stuff so your camper will last for years to come. We don't want water getting in there, ruining and damaging any of our stuff. Now, beyond that, we need to gain access to our roof because we need to clean that rubber at least once or twice a year, and we need to check it after trips to make sure that no trees have poked any holes or damaged the rubber on our roof. Here on the passenger side of our unit, we have more access to our pass-through bay as well as that other stabilizer jack in the front. As we move down the side of our unit, we run into our awning, 12-volt powered, as well as our awning lights as well. All that stuff, 12-volt, pull off of your battery system. There are going to be fuses that run that stuff as well. You want to check if this stuff isn't working. You want to go check that fuse panel. We'll talk more about that and show you where it is when we hit the inside. Now, as far as your awning goes, it is a sunshade mainly, right? You're going to get a little bit of condensation from your AC on there, a little bit of dew, maybe a little light rain every now and again. We need to go ahead and lean our awning either to the front or to the back. Both of our awning arms are the exact same, so you can choose which one you want to do, whether it be the front or the back. In order to do that, for this particular type, we pull this lever down right here, and then we grab our arm, we pitch it down wherever we want it, and then we just lock it back into place. Now, this is to ensure that we can go ahead and run off. You don't need a large pitch, just a little bit in order for that water to run off of that system. When we go to retract our awning, we have to make sure that we pull that latch, raise that arm back up and lock it back in before we run our awning in so we don't cause any damage. Now, one thing we need to be sure of, anything more than even a light rain, we need to roll that awning in. We got a high windstorm coming in, roll that awning in. This can become a parachute, get ripped off of your unit. You're leaving your camper for an extended period of time, roll the awning in. This is to help save you from an insurance claim because manufacturers aren't going to participate in replacing your awning due to lack of ability of being able to bring it in during a storm. So make sure you're taking care of that. It can be a costly repair. Moving further down our unit, we have our outdoor cable hookup for a TV as well as our 110 GFCI protected outlet. And we have our gravity water fill right here. That gravity water fill is for that onboard storage tank we talked about in our convenience center in the front. Now, if we are going somewhere where we don't have water hookups, we want to go ahead and fill that tank up for whatever we may use. We'll kick on our 12-volt water pump and that will pull from that tank to supply water to our fixtures. Now, if we are going somewhere we know we have city water, no use in carrying that water with us unless we plan on using it somewhere along the way, stop at a rest area, we want to be able to have water for the toilet, sink, so on. Only put what you need in there. It does add extra weight to our unit, so no reason to carry a full tank if we don't need it. Now, we also don't want to keep water in there for an extended period of time because it will become stagnant as well. In order to drain that water out, behind this tire, you're going to see a white valve. You pull that white valve and it'll drain the water out of that fresh tank system so you can go ahead and empty it out. On the rear of our unit, we have our outdoor kitchen, which comes with a 110 dorm fridge. Anytime we plug in our unit, that fridge right there is going to power on. It's going to freeze, it's going to cool. We'll unplug our unit, it's going to defrost, it's going to have condensation. We need to make sure when we do that and store our unit, we get any liquids or anything, defrost it, get the water out, wipe it down, and reduce the opportunity for mold and mildew in that fridge, as well as the opportunity for any standing water from it defrosting to leak out and damage our wood components around that fridge. Manufacturers aren't going to participate in that kind of repair. Consider customer maintenance to defrost our fridge properly and get it cleaned up. In this drawer right here, we flip our travel latch up and we have our outdoor stove set up right here. Now out the bottom, you're going to notice that you have your LP line in here. You're going to have that male quick connect, which will go into our female quick connect right there on the frame. Now that valve on there is going to have to be in the off position on that quick connect in order for you to hook this one up, and then you have to open that valve up in order for flow to come out. To disconnect it, once again, that valve will have to be turned off in order for you to release that quick connect from it. When you're done, you go ahead and store that hose back up in there, and we close our piece, close it up, and we want to make sure we put that travel latch in there so it doesn't bounce around while we're traveling. On the back, we have our Suburban furnace right there, gas operated. You're also going to need 12 volts to operate that as well. And then we have our manual stabilizer jack right there at the bottom. On our entry door, we are going to notice some friction controlled hinges, so that door will have a little resistance to it. This is to keep that door from slamming shut when the wind blows. And we can go ahead and open it up all the way. We want to make sure we open it up all the way whenever we operate our solid steps here. These solid steps do have a little frame piece right here to be able to catch in our frame, and if we leave our door halfway open or anything, we can bang that up against our door, tear up our screen, so on and so forth. So open that door up all the way. In this case, that awning is going to have to be closed. To store those steps, simply lift them up, make sure we're clearing our door right there, and then we want to make sure that latch locks in. When we're ready to pull them down, we pull that latch right there, pull our steps down, and we're good to go. Now, after we've leveled our unit left to right, front to back, it is important that we come over here and level our steps. Really simple to do. If we look on the side here, we have this latch. We pull up on that latch and we can extend and retract those legs and lock them into place and find our level spot for our steps. Now, this is important not only for the safety of leveling those steps, but to also make sure we have a good flush threshold right here so our door will close completely and seal. And then we also want to make sure the bottom frame of our door isn't hitting the frame of our steps, causing any damage there. As we move into our unit, to the right, we're going to see our control center right here. We're going to see our battery, our fresh tank, our black tank, our 2 gray tanks, and then our auxiliary source if we had one. Now, this panel right here may vary by model. Your unit has 2 gray tanks, 1 black, so just know that. Now, on this system, we also have our 12-volt water pump. That 12-volt water pump is what's going to pull out of that storage tank that we have our water in to supply to our fixtures. Now, that pump system is going to be an on-demand system. Whenever we turn our water on, we're going to hear that pump running. If you know you don't have water on and you hear that pump running, you want to go and shut that off. There can be 2 things. Either your fresh tank is empty and you don't have water, or you have a leak somewhere in your system. So you want to shut that off so you don't burn that pump up until you can investigate. Here we have our water heater controls, our water heater for LP gas. We want to make sure our tanks are on, then come over here, kick that on. We'll have a DSI fault light right there. That means that that system has not lit yet and there may be a fault in the system. It's going to come on right off the back whenever we turn on our system until it actually lights. It takes a few seconds, that light should turn off. If it continues to stay on, then just like it did there, it pops back on, then we have a fault in the system. Now, this very well could be because we have air in the lines. We want to go bleed the air out of our system before we operate our water heater on LP. We'll show you how to do that when we get to that stovetop. Now, our water heater for electric, as long as we're plugged in, we can kick that on. That electric element in there will kick on and start heating the water. Always get asked, can I turn them both on? Absolutely, you can turn them both on. It'll heat the water a little bit quicker, not much. Here we have our ceiling light controls as well as our exterior light. That'll be for our awning lights. And we have our slide out in and out and our awning extend and retract. All 12-volt powered items. You can find most of this stuff in that fuse panel. We'll show you a little bit later on. Not much to go over in our bedroom. We have our storage under the bed. We have another mount for our TV as well as our hookup for our cable and antenna. Also in our bedroom in the corner, you're going to notice that 110 breaker and 12-volt fuse panel right there. That is where all of our appliances for our 110 are going to be controlled. If something's not working, we want to come make sure they're not tripped, as well as our 12-volt fuse is not blown. You can see everything's labeled there as far as what they control. You may also hear a little fan running behind here. That is your converter. Converter changes 110 to 12 volt. If you're plugged into shore power, that converter will be running. You may hear that fan kick on every now and again to help keep that system cool while it charges your battery. In our kitchen, we have our 110 microwave, our hood vent right here over our stovetop. Remember the vent we talked about outside needs to be open if we want to utilize actually venting out with that system. Here we have our 3-burner cooktop stove. That glass is meant for more counter space. It also needs to be down like this when we travel. When we cook, we flip it up and gain access to our burners. Now, in order for this to operate, of course, propane needs to be on. We turn that knob to our flame right there, and then we go ahead and manually crank that system until it lights. Now, air can get into our propane system like we talked about with our water heater. Now, that happens when we store our unit and we have our tanks off, which is very common to do, no problems there. Whenever we pull it out from camping, we need to bleed the air out. If we swapped our tanks out because one was empty, we need to bleed it out, because what's going to happen, you're going to get air in that system and it can cause faults in some of your components like your water heater or your furnace. So in order to do that, you turn your tanks on, you come over here and you light your stovetop. It takes a little bit of time to light when you have air in the system, just depends on how long, due to how much air or how far away that stove is from the propane system, from the propane tanks. That will determine how long it takes to light. But once it lights, let it run for about 30 to 60 seconds. You got that nice blue crisp flame on there, you're good to go. You only have to do it in those 2 instances if you just pulled your unit out of storage and if you changed your tank out. Once you've done it once on that camping trip, no need to have to do it again. Behind me we have our Furrion 12-volt refrigerator and freezer. Kick that open and we have a little dial down here at the bottom. That dial will go from off to cold to colder, and then it also has an off-grid option. That off-grid option is for if you are boondocking, you're not plugged into shore power anywhere, you're trying to conserve the amount of 12-volt power that you are using, you turn it to off-grid and it will slow down that compressor and not make it work as hard. Now keep in mind, because of that, you want to reduce the amount of times you're opening and closing this fridge so your items will actually stay cold. Now, neither one of these units have a drip tube or drain tube in them, so that means that when that freezer defrosts, when we store our unit, there's going to be standing water. Just like our outdoor fridge, we need to go ahead and get that water out so it doesn't leak out and damage our wood components around it, wipe our fridge down, and reduce the opportunity for mold and mildew. Our couch option does flip down into a bed. We just flip that around. We do have some legs down here. We want to go ahead and put those into place, lock them in, and then we can lay it down for our more sleeping area. Put them back up, and we turn back into a couch. Our dinette booth has 2 poles under the table. You can remove those poles, set it down on a bumper, take the back cushions down, and put them over there for more sleeping space there as well. For our entertainment over our dinette booth, we do have our backer for our TV. We're also going to notice our coax and satellite ports right there. On that, you're going to notice that little red button. When we click it, a little red light turns on. That is our antenna boost. If we're searching for antenna channels, we want to make sure that light is on. And if we are searching for cable channels, if we have that hook up at the campground, we want to make sure that system is off so it doesn't scramble the channels from the campground. Now, we also have our JBL Bluetooth system right here. It'd be hooked up to your phone to be able to play Bluetooth. You have indoor and outdoor speakers as well. Before we enter our bathroom, we have our Furrion thermostat right there. We'll go over the operation of that. We'll start with our cool option first. Our cool will cool the air throughout our unit. We, of course, set our thermostat to whatever point we want it to be, and we have our fan speed options. We have low and high. For low and high, that fan will run all the time. Now, whenever we want that fan to cut off, whenever the compressor cuts off, much like we likely do at home, we have it on auto. That system will shut off and on with the compressor. Our next mode is our heat mode. Our heat mode activates our gas-powered furnace on our unit. We choose our set point, and our heater will come on whenever necessary. There is fan speeds on here, but it does not change the fan speed on that furnace. It is a single fan speed on there controlled by the furnace board. Our next mode is our fan mode. Our fan mode simply circulates air throughout our unit without cooling it or anything. This will come out of our rooftop air, and we can just change from high to low to control that fan speed if we wish. That fan will stay on the entire time when we have it in our fan mode. Our last mode is our dry mode. Our dry mode is like a dehumidifier. We can choose our set point and it will cool our unit down to that set point, and it will continue to cool past that, but alternate every 6 to 10 minutes off and on. That way it doesn't drop that temperature too low and freeze you out of the unit, but it still dries the air in your unit. Another thing to note with our furnace is that the air is going to come out of the vents on the floor. It's not going to come out of the rooftop air. Your only rooftop air is going to be your fan and your cool and your dry. Your heat will come out of those floor vents from the furnace. Up here we'll see our sealing assembly for our Furrion AC. You can see here we have our filter right here. You can pull that down with those two tabs. You want to clean that filter every now and again, make sure we're not restricting air to that AC. Over here we have our dump valve. If we want to open that up, we have more air forced out into just this general area to help cool it off. When we close it, now the air will run through our air ducts that circulate through our whole unit. So if you want to cool the whole unit down, then we want to go ahead and make sure that's closed off so it will actually blow through those vents. Down by our bunkhouse, we're going to notice this little black box that is our COLP detector. A little green light on there lets us know that it is powered up. It's hardwired in our 12-volt battery system to ensure that it has power, and we need to test that with a little test button at least once a month or every time we go camping to make sure that alarm works and operates properly. You are going to have an expiration date either on the front or the back of it to let you know that when it is expired we need to replace it. It's an important component to let you know when any hazardous gases may enter our unit and alert you to get out. We also have our smoke detectors in here powered by 9-volt batteries. We want to make sure those are changed out regularly, and we test the alarm system on there as well. In our bathroom, pretty cut and dry, we have our shower head. We're going to notice a little button on here that can turn our shower head off and on. We use this when we are dry camping. We're trying to utilize the amount of water that we have in our fresh tank as well as the amount of water that we put into our gray tank. So it can be an easier task in between lathering up and rinsing off to just shut the shower head off in between those two rather than filling with a hot and cold fixture right here and then having to refine that sweet spot for the hot cold. You can do that if you wish, or you can use it like normal. If you have a city water connection and a connection for your sewer, you can use it like you would at home and just let it run. Now down here we have our toilet. Toilet is where all of our sewage is going to go, right? Number one. Number two, liquids and solids. If we're flushing liquids down there, hit that pedal, let it rip. If we are doing solids, we want to fill that bowl 1/2 to 3/4 away by barely depressing that pedal. Water will start to fill that bowl, and then we can go ahead and flush our solids just to make sure we have enough water in there to push that stuff down into our tank and we don't get any clogs in our piping. Now the only other things that go in here besides that 1 and 2 is our toilet paper, of course, which needs to be RV toilet paper, that way it will degrade properly, and our chemicals to help all that stuff degrade and make our tank smell nice. Another thing we have in here is a vent up top with a fan on it. We're going to use that whenever we take a shower and get all the heat and humidity out of here and help reduce the option for mold and mildew. Now we're also going to have our GFCI controlled outlet in here. This one is our main GFCI outlet. So anywhere where you see a sticker on those outlets that says GFCI protected and it's not working, you're going to want to come over to this system and see if it needs to be reset. 2 buttons on there. One's your test button to go ahead and duplicate that system being tripped, and the other one is going to be your reset button that will actually reset that system. Now this can happen because an outlet got wet, or it can happen because we have too many appliances plugged into those outlets. Griddles, coffee makers, so on and so forth, heavy amperage items will trip that outlet out if we have too much plugged in, in which case unplug that stuff, make sure the outlets are dry, and then come over here and reset your system.
Well, we hope you found that resourceful, but wait, there's more information on our Great American RV YouTube channel. This channel right here, find the playlist Hap's Helpful Hacks. We go over different products in this unit, and we'll take a deeper dive with more diagnostics, more information, as well as helpful tips when you're out camping. Tell your buddies, tell your friends, like, share, subscribe, do all those awesome things on YouTube, TikTok, wherever you found us, and keep watching here at Great American RV Superstores, where we bring the how-to you.